Before Rockstar North was, well, Rockstar North, they were known as DMA Designs, notable for such releases such as Lemmings and Uni Races. They also happened to kick off one of the world's biggest game series too, which you may or may not have heard of, Grand Theft Auto. Originally released on DOS and Windows in 1997, it was quickly ported to the PlayStation 1, which is what we are checking out today. Being on such hardware, you'd be forgiven for thinking that the look and feel would be like Driver or Driver 2, but in fact, this is a very different looking game compared to modern entries in the series. However, as we delve in, you realise that the gameplay is very alike, even to GTA 5. The series certainly started with a bang regardless, or should I say, skid. Actually, technically it would have been both. Man, that joke just walked itself out of the door, didn't it? Let's start off with what is similar to modern GTAs. If you've played the more recent titles, then you'll be right at home with the fact that you're popped into a rather large city and directed to different missions all over the map. If you're like me though, you'll also feel comfortable with the fact that instead of heading to a mission like the game tells you to, you can instead straight away steal a car and start running over civilians. The feeling is certainly familiar. You can do whatever the hell you please until you eventually die or get arrested. The sandbox world is there for the taking, but if you do decide to start doing some missions, it's then when you realise that there are some key differences. There is no deep and involved overarching storyline for one, as I found out that this version of GTA is actually an arcade game at heart. Points must be scored if you wish to progress, and surprisingly, you have a limited number of lives when you begin. On top of that, while there are many missions available on each level, if you fail then most are non-repeatable. Each level has a certain amount of points to be earned if you wish to progress, so it's possible that you will play through a level, passing some missions but failing others, and run out of missions to do and not hit the required amount of points. If you get that far without the amount needed, then you will be more or less stuffed and have to restart, which will really sting if you've just sat there for a few hours trying to get everything done. The game can only be saved between each level, in which there are 6 of, so you definitely have to be aware of how your points are tracking as you progress. It wasn't uncommon that I had to redo large amounts of the game regularly, and this is definitely one of the main sour points of Grand Theft Auto. So with that in mind, prepare yourself for large sittings if you plan on playing this, otherwise you won't ever make it to the converted save points and you'll never progress. That crappy aspect of the game aside, the actual missions are quite a bit of fun. While they do get a bit repetitive, you'll find yourself participating in bank robberies, assassinations, all sorts of stealing, and of course, the highly naughty act of Grand Theft Auto. These missions are all orchestrated by over-the-top and memorable characters who are full of attitude too, which has since become a series staple. And while most of the time in-game will be spent hooning around as the title would suggest, you can of course exit the vehicle, shoot some baddies or innocents who probably aren't so bad, and then steal another car and do it all again. The shooting parts are probably the toughest of the game however, as only one bullet will lead you to your maker unless you're wearing armor. I'm not sure if the developers were trying to be realistic for some strange reason, as this detracts from the arcade nature of the game, but it should be noted that most deaths in level won't actually mean a mission failed. You'll just pop out of the nearest hospital and jump straight back into the action, although I should point out that you do have finite lives, so dying in general never works in your favour anyway. There are no ammunitions in town to buy weapons and flex your Second Amendment right, but instead there are crates scattered everywhere that are full of all sorts of goodies. These have the weapons you'll need, but also include other helpful items like armor, police bribes, extra lives, and frustratingly, the ability to run. There are also garages around which will change your car if you have too much police attention. It's funny to see that the cops are still daft enough in game that a brand new lick of paint will trick them, especially if they see you go into a garage, but sadly this is the only way to get rid of them. No matter how far away you drive from them and how low your wanted level is, the rating still won't disappear until you find a garage, in which there are only 4 or 5 for each decently large map. Talking of the maps, as per tradition, 3 of them are physically included with the game and are delightfully familiar. These include Liberty City, which is based off New York, Vice City, which is based off Miami, and of course, San Andreas, which is more or less California. The difference here, however, is that the usage of these physical maps is mandatory. There is no in-game maps, although it does notify you of each area's name as you travel through them, so you get an idea of where you are on the real map. This is kind of a pain in the bum, but luckily there are major road systems connecting all areas. If travelling from one location to another, I highly recommend sticking to these for the most part, as the smaller roads wave all over the place. These are a bit harder to navigate by car anyway, as it's a lot harder to weave in and out of the much slower moving civilian traffic. They also tend to lead you right to waterfronts too, which are essentially dead ends since your character is not aqua friendly. The first few GTAs distinctly look different to their younger siblings. Instead of being presented from a third-person point of view and full 3D environments, instead utilize an isometric perspective. This fits in well with the arcade theme, and the camera whooshes in and out depending on how fast you're going or if you're on foot. This made me feel a bit woozy at the start admittedly, but just like being on a boat, this spewing does eventually finish. And while each individual element of the environment does feel a bit plain, combined, each city resembles their real-life counterparts enough that you should be able to figure out what's being mimicked. Additionally, there are simple cutscenes included that can be viewed on completion of each level. While not long, these are funny to watch and are nice little rewards for finally making it to a save point.
Nice work, kid, but the shit's hit the f***ing fan. The cops are crawling up my ass with flashlights looking for you.
For an open world game set from a top-down perspective released in 1997, the cities are brimming with a surprising amount of life. Drive like a dick, which you will do regularly, and passers-by will let you know how they feel by yelling obscenities. Besides from that, quite a bit of effort has been put into the sound design. You hear the thumping bass of cars as they pass, chanting groups of people, as well as plenty of other sounds of the city. What I haven't mentioned yet though is the in-game radio. Later GTAs are known for their meticulously crafted radio stations which are full of humour and also plenty of licensed music. This GTA has that, but instead it seems that all songs are made just for the game. There are plenty of different genres included too, which will play depending on what type of vehicle you enter. For example, old pickups will play country and western, while a sporty convertible will play club music. If my hunch is correct, then this is the most effort I've ever seen put into a game soundtrack in the late 90s. All crammed onto a 700 megabyte CD along with the rest of the game files no less. At least, I hope the music is game specific anyway, or I'll be having a bad time with Content ID once I upload this video. All in all, a fantastic start to the Grand Theft Auto series. Sure, there are some key differences in the game design, but there are also plenty of similarities, ensuring that you will feel right at home if you've only played the later titles. Looking aside from the gameplay, another major point is the pure attitude and humour included. Even though this nearly is 20 years old, it's still as funny as its newer counterparts. There are some aspects that are frustrating for sure, but for every one time you feel irritated, there are 3 other times where the game will at least make you chuckle. Hello retro gamers, and thank you so much for watching. Not much has happened on RetroGameOn.com since my review of Lode Runner 3D, but instead I'm quite happy to announce that I'm now a staff writer for a gaming website called GameCloud. Based in Perth, which is my home city, GameCloud has been active since about 2012. It won't detract from my work here of course, but instead I'd like to flex my writing muscles there and release articles about the local indie gaming scene and more modern releases. My retro gaming lifestyle has seeped in there already though, and my first review is for Omicron the Nomad Soul, which was released in 1999. That is linked below, but I'll let you know right now that it involves David Cage and none other than David Bowie. And of course, since it is retro, expect a video review of it here very soon. Anyway, thanks again so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.